welcome back.
Hi, guys.
How's it going?
This is not creepy at all.
We're now launching the ASMR aspect of the channel. James, make some clicking noises with your mouth. No?
You caught me off guard there, Jim.
I'm going to leave all of that in there, but greetings, Starfighters. Welcome back. Welcome to Mad Science Films. I'm Jimmy P, filmmaker, sexual astronaut, and as ever, I'm joined by my godlike co-host.
Oh, I like that one. That's good. Yeah, let's keep doing that every week. James Morrissey, a filmmaker, one half of Mad Science Films, aka the man with no nickname. What is up? Guys, before we get going, if you do like this video, then please hit that like button. If you have been enjoying the Mad Science Films content and want to subscribe to our channel, follow us on Facebook. And if any comments or suggestions, leave those in the comment section down below. Much appreciated.
Thanking you. Next up, guys, if you are in the UK and a Prime Video member, please check out our fourth feature film for free, Giving It Away.
Giving
Don't
it away.
take that as a mark of its quality. It's actually very good, but we are still giving it away for free. Just search for Little Monster or click on the links in the show notes below. This week, we are campaigning for a forgotten masterpiece of genre cinema to be given the beautiful Blu Ray treatments. It's my turn this week, so sorry, Jim P. I have to park it for now. And I've gone for 80 shot in the 80s, early 90s horror anthology, The Willies from 1990. Two brothers camping with their cousin, trying to frighten each other by telling each other campfire tales. There are two main stories, one involving strange happenings at an elementary school, and the other, a teenage boy with a peculiar interest, which is very vague, and yeah, that's not the best, but hey, there we go. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
so,
get a sense.
There we go. The Willies, 1990. Jim, did you catch this as a kid?
No, I didn't.
Okay, first time.
No, first time watch from moi. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I kind of like those anthology storytelling kind of films. I kind of like the little that had like little warm up tales before they got into the two longer, more in depth kind of tales. They really went all out on the, trying to gross out. It's definitely a film for kids, though, I'd say. Like, it's not really rude and crude, not a lot of swear words, if I can remember rightly, if any.
Pretty safe,
but they didn't hold back on the gore, did they? There was some really kind of good horror moments in there. I didn't like the Flyboy story as much as I liked the creature one. I just felt like the Flyboy story dragged out a little bit too much. The main character wasn't really easy to follow, and I didn't really connect with him. He just felt a bit like just felt a bit wishy-washy, but there were some really good, cool moments in that story. There's really some visuals, the bit where he's in the fridge with the flies on the face, and then the bit, spoilers, where the flies then grow thanks to this manure, fertilizer. And then they take his arms off, and then you see him in this hammock with just these claw arms, which is great. So I think for kids, for us for being horror fans, I think that I would potentially show Caden this horror film. I think,
Full disclosure, I watched this when I think I was 11, and it fucked me up. So this is I found this out there on the interwebs, and I said to Jim, we got to do this, man. I remember this film. I saw the poster, and I remember the video box, and then I remember how much as a kid this messed me up. But clearly, so much that I'd actually repressed it deep down. Because like when I talk about my go-to films that messed me up as a kid, The Willies isn't one that I kind of remembered until now, and it brought back some shit, mostly from that end segment that you're talking about with the bug. There was stuff that my poor little mind. I must have been about 11 when this came out, because if it was 1990, I'm guessing it didn't come out on video over here until 91 at the earliest. But there was a few things about this film which I think lulled me into this weird sense of security. So Sean Astin is in the wraparound sequence. He's one of the kids in the tent telling these campfire tales. And, you see Sean Astin at that kind of period, and he's a little bit older, but you think Goonies. He's
a jock as well, isn't he?
He's a jock.
Yeah.
This is probably round about the time of Toy Soldiers as well. Do you remember that one? Toy Soldiers,
Oh,
where
yeah.
they're fighting back
That's
against the
right.
kids in the school. So yeah, Sean Astin was in the movie. I was watching it around at a friend's house. It was during the day. Tonally, it's such a weird film. Like, you're talking about these like the little short bits, you know, like with a deep fried rat and then the microwave dog and all this other kind of stuff. So yeah, it's like this urban legend, and you're kind of thinking, oh, brilliant, yeah, you know, like wacky stuff, and it's really played for laugh. Like that sequence in like the KFC type place, the characters are so big and wacky and stuff like that. You're kind of like, yeah, this is funny, this is messed up. And then because, as you said, the gore is so dark. And unlike other films, definitely of the 80s, and I'd say of the 90s, there's a real threat of danger to the kids, which you don't get a lot of.
I'm laughing because that may have something to do with the person who fucking directed it.
There is that. We'll get onto that. Definitely, we'll get onto that. But there's this real threat of danger. There's this pretty strong gore. I mean, as Jim hinted at, and yeah, full spoilers here. The bit which messed me up as a kid was, this kid who like pulls the wings off flies. Ends up in the same room as giant flies, which then pull his arms off. And then the next thing you see is he wakes up and you think, oh, thank God, it's all a dream. He's in a hammock, and then a fly lands on his nose and he starts to scratch his nose, and he's got 2 hooks for hands.
Brilliant. I like that. It was really
As a kid, I was just sat there traumatized. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So yeah, that messed me up for that.
No, it's definitely one I'm going to throw at my son and maybe my nephew, because they often say, "Oh, I can watch horror films. I'm not scared." Blah 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 blah. So it's definitely a good stepping stone.
I can't be conscious because it messed me up as a kid, man. Like I just don't want those sleepless nights. I don't want to do that to my own kids. Like I messaged Jim the other night. I showed my eldest Army of Darkness for the first time. She absolutely loved it. But that's like wacky in the same kind of way, but doesn't have those like messed up kind of bits. It's still very safe. Whereas, I just think, that you're letting yourself into, it's a bit of
sleepless nights. Yeah,
I don't know, man. Maybe I was, a wimpy kid or whatever, but that did mess me up, man.
Perhaps this. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
No, I was to say, perhaps the slightly dated creature effects may soften it a little.
Could do.
Perhaps.
I mean, I watched. I think it was all about the context. Like, at this age, I'd already watched. Definitely had seen Nightmare on Elm Street, but I knew that going in that this was scary film, and I think it was because the Willies. It even sounds like the Goonies, with Sean Astin on there. I went in thinking this was a kid's film, and I was completely blindsided by it. So I'm going to blame it on that. As you say, I think it's a kid's film, but the gore in it is like pretty.
Didn't hold back. But you often find though with going back to that period that kids films or kid orientated films, particularly some of the ones that we watch from abroad. They really push the boundaries, and they're not afraid to put a child mentally in a difficult position whilst watching a film and really fuck with their emotions. If it's going to be a horror or it's going to be sad, then they're not afraid. Even like Flight of the Navigator, when he loses his family. That's exactly, I watched my son watch that, and it's like, it's quite upsetting. Like, so, which is good, I guess, for their progression and their growth as adults.
I guess so, or it could just mess you up and you could become me. So, who's now living full time up in my attic? I love like the wraparound sequence for this film, and I think it's a really good idea of these kids. And again, kids,
simple, isn't it? As well, I quite like that.
Simple, but they're trying to like gross each other out. They're always talking about, oh, that's gross, or that didn't happen, and I love that. And like later on, I'll talk about like some of my recommendations. Also, go back to that idea of they're telling a story, and so at no point are you expected to believe it's real, and then there's twists later on about it all. But I love the fact that it's these kids egging each other on. I think that works really well. And sometimes with anthology films, like they try too hard to come up with a linking device, and I think this was a perfect one.
Perfect, it's brilliant.
Urban legends, campfire tales, this kind of stuff they've heard in school, and I've done the same. Jim, I'm sure you've done the same.
Absolutely,
this myth of something that's happened locally or whatever, and you've told it on, but you added details and stuff like that. And I think that kind of explains away the tone. The other bit, which we'll get to, unfortunately, with the behind the scenes, is there's a bit of a Return of the Living Dead connection here. Obviously, in terms of the cast, we see James Cameron and Gallagher. So obviously both of those guys were in Return of the Living Dead, and James Cameron was in Return of the Living Dead as well.
Yeah. And Dana Ashbrook was also he played the tough guy. Yeah, he was in number 2.
2, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
No, absolutely. Yeah. He was barely in it though, wasn't it? It was very much.
A few seconds, yeah.
Also, so this film was also directed by Brian Peck, who was featured in. He was the punk in one of the punks in the first Return of the Living Dead.
Guz, I think he played. Yeah.
And then he was in the second and the third film as well in smaller roles. And this is where we get, unfortunately, to the sticky thing about Mr. Peck. So, what is unfortunately now becoming a trend on this show, Mr. Peck, unfortunately, was convicted of, I forget the exact wording, but let's just say, pedo.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. And this isn't one of those words like we had with Evil Laugh, where there was question marks about it or whatever. Unfortunately, this was one where, he is convicted of said thing. And yet it seems to still get work in Hollywood. A very good friend of Charlie Sheen. And again, we talked about Charlie Sheen on an earlier episode with links to all of this, and Corey Haim. And also worked on the X-Men movies with Bryan Singer, who himself is unfortunately,
It does make you fucking worry, doesn't it? Like we were saying earlier before we start recording about like the Jeepers Creepers, you kind of watch these films, you enjoy these films, then you learn that the guy directing is a dirty fucking pedo, and it just tarnishes it, doesn't it? You're like, oh, stop touching kids, you just make good films. You know what I mean? I
watched the film, and I saw the film as a kid, and I suggested this film, and then as I do,
you just learn
notes. I go down the rabbit hole of, okay, what else did the director do? Oh, he didn't direct anything else, but he was in this. Brian Peck, Google Brian Peck, and then So this is a bit of a mixed one. I'm not entirely sure, in good conscience, depending on where the money would go, that this should have a Blu-ray release. Yeah. However, obviously, with feature films, lots of other people worked on these feature films. Now, so the proviso is, I would campaign for this film to get a Blu-ray release because I think it is a very good film. But with the understanding that Brian Peck does not see a cent, a penny, a euro from this movie. So, hopefully, other producers and other people who would work on the film would get to see this, get to see the benefits of this film being released. So, having said that, Jim, is there any Blu-ray label you think would be well placed to put this bad boy out?
Well, I picked a couple, and these two I've picked because they have Return of the Dead connections. They have those on their arsenal. Also, they have a few like Tales from the Crypt, so storytelling kind of horror films, and also Creepshow, which is 1983, I think, Creepshow as well. So I've gone for Shout Factory. Yep. And Second Sight.
Yeah, I also said Shout Factory. I think just the time period is well set. And again, very similar films, very similar American indie, but not super low budget indie. So I think they'd be smack dab in the middle of that to put out a nice package. Okay, Jim, so you've seen the Willies. You've unfortunately done your homework. You've had a shower to try wash off that. What film would you follow it up with next?
I've gone for Goosebumps. Quite a recent film, but child-friendly, creatures, monsters, good fun. Not as dark as the Willies, but perhaps if you wanted to kind of calm it down a bit, maybe kids a bit traumatized, perhaps slap on Goosebumps.
I saw that at the cinema with my kids. They loved it. And it felt very much like a throwback to those kind of movies as well. So
and then the other one I've gone for, and I've just mentioned it now because it's a brilliant one. I particularly like the Dan Aykroyd little story in there. So this is another anthology. It's the Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone, the movie. Dan Aykroyd, John Lithgow, I think, is in it too. Really creepy stories in that, and particularly the Dan Aykroyd one. Can you remember that scene, Jim?
Yeah. Definitely.
You want to see something scary?
I went for, again, focusing more on kind of like urban legends, that kind of stuff. So Trick or Treat, the horror anthology film from a couple of years ago, probably about 10, 12 years ago now. But again, I thought that kind of matched that nice vibe of, it felt very kind of kid friendly, but with strong horror elements in there as well. I also went with Spookies, like 80s weird.
Oh, yeah.
And again, that was just very much throw everything at the wall and see what kind of works. Interesting, like behind the scenes on that as well. So worth, doing a bit of research on that. And also Dead Time Stories, which again, I think was like uncle telling his nephews bedtime stories, and obviously telling them messed up tales as well. Have you seen the Willies? Did you know about the director's sordid past? I didn't. Are there any other films that you think would go well with a Willies double bill? And how mature have we been not making Willies jokes?
Oh yeah, missed a trick there.
You know what? I just think because of the directors.
Yeah, I think that one might be. Yeah.
We'll park that. But again,
distasteful.
Guys, how much have we matured?
Pat on the back.
Are there any other films that you guys think we should check out and campaign for a Blu Ray release? Let us know in the comments.
No pedo directors, please.
Jim,
yes.
What else can they do?
All right, guys. So again, if you like this video, then please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.